Please turn the little switch to the right if you are sitting by a microphone.
There's no red light on it to
You
tell
can't
us
see
we're
it,
hot.
it's hidden.
Always assume a microphone's on.
Sorry. Joe, you can't turn yours on because of, you guys are special. There he is. Do you have a form for me? All right. It is
woodwork, rich mahogany.
Have a seat, Mr. Sepchik. Thank you, sir. Okay, okay. And I'm going to ask you not to cast any votes tonight because, all right. Thank you. Hey, how's it going? All right, it is 4:31, and I will call this meeting of the Pulaski County Redevelopment Commission to order, beginning with quick introductions. I am Nathan Fjorger, I am the executive director. On the other end is Taylor Bailey, my assistant and our recording secretary.
Katie Barham.
Brian Ledley.
Kyle Sefcik.
Isaiah Tidwell.
Randy Larkin.
Joe Cunningham.
All right, thank you all for being here. We will begin with the reorganization of the commission for 2026. Need to elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary. The president obviously runs meetings, occasionally has to sign documents, and serves on the CDC, which has an additional 4 meetings per year. The 2025 president was Mr. Ledley. The vice president runs meetings in the absence of the president, and that's about all that is expected of the vice president. Mr. Sefcik was our 2025 vice president. And the secretary is not asked to prepare minutes. Staff prepares them. We ask the secretary to review and okay all for any additions, corrections, or deletions before we disseminate to the full membership for review and eventual approval, and occasionally has to attest some of those signatures that I mentioned in a moment. Do we have any nominations or volunteers for the office of president for 2026?
I would stay on as president if,
Oh, never
yeah,
mind.
I mean,
Do you want to keep the same slate or?
Randy, what were you going to say?
Oh, it was quiet, so I was saying I would volunteer, but then Brian and I spoke at the same time.
You can still throw your name in the hat. We can have a good old-fashioned election runoff.
If, Brian, do you want to it was quiet, and so I thought maybe there was a pause, but I'm willing to,
yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do it too. I mean,
okay.
All right, do we have any volunteers or nominations for the office of vice president?
Volunteer. Unless Kyle would like to remain.
No, that's fine with me.
You both have BL for initials
Oh, that's funny.
and B and R for. All right, do we have any other, if we have no other volunteers or nominations, I will move along to secretary. Any volunteers or nominations for the role of secretary?
I'm happy to remain.
Okay, anyone else? Right. Hearing no other volunteers or nominations, I will entertain a motion to close the nominations and approve the slate as presented.
Make a motion.
A second.
Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Sorry. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. All right, motion carries. Officers are elected. Mr. Frayne has arrived at 4:34. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. I apologize.
I accidentally skipped something over, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda unless anyone wants to extract anything for discussion. In there, we have the approval of the agenda, approval of the January 25 minutes, and the approval of the notes, memorandum, whatever you want to call it, from March of 2025 when we did not have a quorum, which is why we did not approve the January 2025 minutes earlier. These have gone out to you. Katie has signed off on them. Any requests to extract, or do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It is approved. Thank you. Moving on to old business. Just quickly on the two housing projects we had previously been discussing, and I think these two specific projects can probably be removed from the agenda going forward. The Catalyst site housing project that we had been discussing, that had emerged in conversations out of the housing task force that had been put together in partnership with the Community Foundation. Originally, after all those painful conversations, we targeted the county farm property on the south side of the county road because it would avoid requiring us to purchase any land. Eventually, we decided that wasn't going to work because the town of Winnemac had reservations about annexing that area and running necessary utility connections out there. And so we pivoted to the Galbraith family property east of US 35 and north of the North Plaza. I had a handful of conversations with Eric Galbraith. We had appraisals done. We had tentatively been awarded $1 million in ready funds to put towards that project, which did come with a fairly hefty local match requirement, which would have had to have been provided between the county and other participants in a capital stack, most likely individual developers. The proposal was going to be that we would trade some of the farmland with the Galbraiths so that we did not have to expend any cash to acquire that land, and we actually would have generated about $198,000 in cash as part of the deal. The county commissioners have decided that at this moment they are not ready to sell the county farmland or otherwise to dispose of it and want to keep it for annual income generation. So that project is sort of on the back burner. Additionally, I have never been a huge fan of that sort of neighborhood scale development in a community of this size. I prefer more of an infill lot by lot approach, but the philosophy of the Housing Resource Hub is to build catalyst projects. And in general, when you are working with state money, there is this expectation that you're going to do something big and sexy. So while it would have been nice to have that $198,000, even if we didn't do anything at the Galbraith property right now, we are sort of in a holding pattern on that project. And so really housing general.
Nathan, what's the acreage of the county farm?
That's a complicated question. The acreage specifically south of the county road we had discussed is somewhere in the ballpark of 90 acres plus or minus. Right now, it's all one parcel that includes recycling and transfer station, as well as the farm ground that sort of surrounds the county farm or the old county home. And the commissioners did give me the green light to survey and split that. So in the future, it's easier to get things done, but haven't had that done yet. It's about 90 acres south mostly in that one big parcel plus a 10-acre parcel at the far south end.
Does this group have like a plat map of that area?
I don't have one on hand.
I just meant like in general, like, is that something that you've distributed to this group before?
Which area?
Of the farm area?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I can get that to you. It's, like I said, we're about to survey it, so that's all going to change once the split.
It would
is
make
done.
sense to what you said.
Split it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because if it includes the former highway garage, which is recycling.
Yep, that even that part is just kind of wonky, that
Yeah.
what we're renting out for farm ground and what we have for county operations are not.
Is
set.
the barn in there, or does REACT have that?
That got, when the county sold the county home, that little bit of section of property was split into two separate parcels.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if REACT owns the barn or if the county owns that, but that parcel got separated from the bigger parcel and from the county home when the county home was sold.
So the reservation is that the commissioners want to continue having that serve as farmland and not a housing development?
Is that coming from the utility? Is that,
Okay, so the commissioners, at least the current administration, were never really part of the conversation about developing that property. Sort of the transition occurred just about selling it. And they were the pivot from that property to the property on the north side of the town was driven mostly by the Winnemac Town Council.
So that would be that farm that's on the west side of the plaza,
East side,
east side.
yes. So that is what we had proposed swapping.
East side, sorry.
And the county just didn't want to give up the income generating property at this time. But the pivot was because it's in NIPSCO's electrical territory and the town wouldn't get, and while there are water and sewer lines nearby, it's not all the way there, and the town didn't want to go through what, because of changes to state law, would be a multi-step annexation process.
To change it to town utilities.
And then
NIPSCO didn't want to give
and
up?
NIPSCO is not going to play nice. They just weren't going to. We even approached, like Brad Zellers even approached them about the possibility of trading some service area. And they saw, oh, there could be houses here and multiple users. They didn't want to play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah. However, that property you're talking about east of the plaza, that's pretty congested out there already, getting access in and on the highway without a stoplight.
Well,
which we're not
and
gonna
I
get.
know that the Galbraiths have talked about working with us and or the town and INDOT to add at least one other way into the area off of the highway. So if development ever start, and whether or not the swap ever happens, we acquire it through other means, or Galbraith start developing it on their own. Once utility work connecting the state park to the town goes forward and the town puts in new wells, it's probably going to have to be the ingress egress issue is probably going to have to be addressed. Anyway.
Right, because it's going to cross the highway and go out on the other.
So there's a lot going on there.
Is there possibilities anywhere else that you think for this housing development? Like,
We had a couple of other that we looked at. One, we had some preliminary conversations with the landowners. It's a great location, but they're just not interested in selling. The other one, we have talked about the possibility of where Parish Parkway is, where
That's what was in my mind.
The Cripe started developing.
Who owns
So,
past the curb section?
so if it has not been built and purchased by an individual family or homeowner, it is still owned by the Cripe family. And once Don Cripe passed away, it just became a lot more difficult to even to get in touch with the family and to negotiate with them. I was in some conversations with the Friends of the Panhandle Pathway, and they ended up buying a little bit of Tom Halleck's field and going around the edge there because the conversations just weren't going anywhere.
Tom Halleck has the farm to
Right.
Tube.
Due west of.
To the west.
Yep, and north, I think, up until the ditch at least. But, so the Panhandle ended up,
That seems like a pretty legit area for
it is.
housing development.
Like I said, the issues were one, what I said, that the family is hard to get in touch with and even harder to work with once you get in touch with them. And their asking price for lots
It's
is
never come down. It's
It's a bit
never come
salty.
down.
Oh, yes, I was indicating more that farmland west of that. It's so nice out there.
It is very nice out there.
Yeah, and the Panhandle pathway is to me, it's an attractive part of our community. And if they were able to get a road back to the highway, which I think there's Keller Street.
Yeah, I think there is
I don't know if it's a
more
real
of
street.
a right of way than there is a developed street.
Right, I think there's a street. I don't know if it's really developed.
Like I said though, and the actual Parish Parkway properties, if Cripe family could be negotiated with, a little more along what I, like when I was like, I don't know that neighborhood scale is the right step. That's, like I said, what the hub does.
Is it just housing, or does it also include shops and stuff?
It would just be housing. But, you
But
know.
the county
building-
could buy those lots from the Cripes.
We could, I mean, that would be an ideal solution if we could get them down in the price.
May I ask what might be an ignorant?
Oh, there's no ignorant questions here. I own them.
What is the core driver of increased housing with the population continuing the downward trend? Like,
Well, and this, part of my answer gets to why I'm not a huge fan of the build at scale approach. Is I think that the study that was done during the housing task force project, it did show there is some unmet demand that we haven't been able to tap. But I also think part of it is there's too much of an if you build it, they will come sort of philosophy that doesn't really work anymore. The ironic thing about that is I just read a blog post by the executive director of the Housing Resource Hub that said exactly that, even as it was their like development philosophy that was guiding the idea of this neighborhood scale development. So I don't know if they have rethought their process or if it just needs to be thought of in a more nuanced manner. Part of it is trying to target the substantial workforce that is commuting here and doesn't find the right housing and the right price point. They've been very high level preliminary conversations, but we've had some conversations with a couple of major employers who, if we got to the point where we were ready to make something happen, like actively wanted to partner with us because they want to make it easier for their workforce that's coming from Cass County, Stark County, at least have the option to move. And I don't think there's build 20 or 30 houses capacity for that. I think it's 4 or 5 houses. If it works, build a few more. But that's really the driving. I think there is some housing stock, and this gets back to my comment about when state money is involved, it's always got a big, sexy, grand projects. Unless it is like owner occupied, low income driven. The state is not historically been big on providing financial assistance for updating existing housing stock, modernizing it so that housing stock that is there, but really not moving well, might become more attractive. It's all either give you money to build new houses, give grandma who is on fixed income money to replace her boiler or make ADA accessibility improvements to her house. It's there's not a lot of support.
This is ownership. This is
Yeah.
ownership. This isn't renting.
Right.
So
So
it's
there's-
like that path to ownership thing, and people who are the working class and people who commute here. And we have data you presented to us that supports a small scale of this, not a massive scale. Not
I think based on the methodology they use, it was probably inflated a little bit from what's realistic, but there's still room for demand. But
does Willow Creek consume some of that? Like, I know that's not.
and that is a very good
ownership,
question.
but that's a big number.
Possibly. So because those units are all income based.
and they flew off the shelf.
Yes, they did. We may as well segue into. We don't need to talk about that project anymore, but all 34 units have filled.
It's awesome.
I think
That
that's
could have met some of that need.
possibly. I think the silver lining is that in this whole conversation about not being able to make the land swap, not having to turn down the $1 million, is with Willow Creek, we're going to have a chance to see how much, if any, that shakes up the market. Because it is all below average, it's all below the area median income, it may not target all of what we would be wanting to build to get the average Braun person to move from Royal Center to Winnemac.
With a family.
But it may shake it up, and it may create some rental property openings that leave landowners deciding they need to upgrade their properties to make them more attractive, whether they put it on the sale or put it back on the rental market. So yeah, Brandy, I think there is a chance that will happen. It's not going to necessarily fill the entire demand that may be out there just because of the income limitations, but I think that is going to be, like, as we see how property owners react, that might be the first sort of indication of what's happening with the market right now.
Have you heard, or is there, right, I mean, having those 34 go that quickly, is there an opportunity where another private developer might say, hey, there's money here, and they come in and try to do something similar?
I think probably so. I don't know if just seeing that really gives them enough information as to whether or not it's more.
Or do they just zap up all the demand?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're not even talking about the Hickory Creek development. How many was that? How many?
12?
That's not 12 or 15, I
I mean,
think.
that opened up, and there's a market for that, but we really, you really want us to keep in our minds, I think, after all of our brainstorming we did last year at that one meeting, how to bring families here.
Yeah, I
Because
think
we need kids
yes.
and working parents and kids. And
What are the restrictions on using the ready money? Like, is there still a path to
We don't-
leveraging that?
Without the land swap, for the cash and or for the value of the land, we don't have,
We couldn't come up with a match to use it for anything.
not at $4 million.
Okay. So, okay, we'll just move on from that. Do we think that the comprehensive plan puts us in a better position to use funding that may become available?
I hope so. Funny you might ask. Funny you ask. If there are no questions about these two specific housing projects, we will move along in the agenda.
Well, okay, hold on, let me make another comment. Is there a deadline on the ready funding? Or does it go back into the pot and it gets utilized for the next project somewhere else?
It'll go to another project.
Okay.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
Does it allow for, I don't know, I want to, trailer parks, mobile home communities? I don't want to
The
say.
ready funds?
Yeah. I just look at our mobile home park here and the people who purchased it, and it's
Turned it around.
really nice.
Frank Shepard, I think that's what it is. He's done a really great job.
Frank and Nikki have done a fantastic job,
Yeah,
and they're doing it all across. They've got multiple properties, and they're giving people a dignified place to live. They own their home, their mobile home. They rent the lot, and they give them. It's clean. It's nice.
The short answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, when we were looking at this and I was working on draft budgets, it wasn't likely that the ready money itself, or at least much of it, would go towards the homes themselves. Going to go to the infrastructure, maybe like earthwork to prepare, but like ideally some of the local match would have been in Tom Miller or whoever in the actual money they put into the project.
Or Frank with Thrive
Yeah.
Communities.
Yes.
He seems like a good person to consider. He seems to have good capital.
So it would have been, I don't know, we never got to that bridge to have to cross it, but most of the money we would have received if we were moving forward in that direction would have gone towards water, sewer, electric, pavement, sidewalks, earth prep, and then most of the actual investment in the houses themselves would have been part of the $4 million match.
And just to give Brandy, last year, I think it was asked, can we use this in towns? I think this was the money we talked about for blight. Like if we went into some of the towns where the houses are falling down and stuff, and you said no.
Can't do it for blight removal. We could have done it for like
If
the commissioners had been ready to move forward with the land swap and we were able to try to put this together, even if we had to go $500,000 in ready match, because that's our ready money instead of $1 million. And when I say that I'm not sure that neighborhood skill development is the right answer, the other benefit, if I could have gotten IEDC to let us do like individual infill lot development, was it wouldn't have necessarily had to be all in Winnemac. We could have put 2 houses up in Francisville, put one up in Maderaval, put one in Monterey, maybe one in Star City, and a few here. We could have spread it out.
That seems more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It-
Does it have to be residential, or could it be like we partner and extend the trail to the park? Or,
I mean, it could have been. I mean, it's just that the project we had submitted, we actually, I believe I know they did for Ready One. I don't know if, I can't remember if they were in a position to do so for Ready Two. The Panhandle did apply for Ready funds in Ready One. I don't remember if they did in Ready Two. Housing was something that we've been focusing on through partnership with the foundation and then into the Redevelopment Commission. We could have gone back. I don't think right now the Friends of the Panhandle were in the position to show that they could commit. They probably could have spent the next 6 months raising funds, but I don't think they were in a position to put down, yes, we have the local match.
Okay.
And that was going to be an issue.
but if somebody did have the local match, it could be for something besides housing, like we're not locked in.
Potentially, like, it was tentatively approved for housing. We potentially could have gone back and said, hey, we have local match, but it's
You talking about
something.
we, us, or we, the commissioners?
Ultimately, I mean,
We
I
recommend.
would have needed the commissioner's blessings, but I would have gone and said, hey, so-and-so has local match, they want to see X happen. Like, we talked last year in that brainstorming session about like a recreational center, whatever the final version of that might entail. We've got somebody who wants to give us $4 million to put towards this rec center. Can we withdraw our housing application and do that? And I don't know what the answer is, because we're talking about, at the end of the day, we had, I think, roughly 25 Northwest Indiana projects that were tentatively approved for funding out of close to 100. So I'm not sure that far into the game, they wouldn't have looked at the list and said, who's number 26? As opposed to letting us keep the money that we asked for use X to put towards use Y.
Okay, so not to beat a dead horse, but is there somewhere like a summary of what occurred here with this Ready project so that we can reference it in the future of like?
I could probably put something together for meeting minutes that would do that.
That would be helpful, thank you.
Okay. So I fully anticipate we will continue talking about housing broadly, but these two specific projects, I don't think we need to talk about them anymore. One is done and one is,
So there's no other phase to that one behind Sanders, right?
as
They're
of right
done.
now,
They're
no.
done.
They own, so if there are lots that have already been surveyed and split along the street that goes out to
Oh, the new
Blair
out
Taunton,
past,
actually
yeah.
on our way back to the hospital. But so if here's the street, here's Blair's house, here are those lots that Galbraith's own as part of the subdivision.
So that is north and east of Hickory Creek,
You mean Riverwood?
Riverwood. Right?
No. So we're just west of Riverwood. So,
Okay.
So here's Riverwood. Here's Riverwood. Here is some vacant land. Here's the street. Here's Blair Todd's house. This and down here on the south side of Galbraith Drive, we're all part of the Willow Creek subdivision.
Okay.
The part where Sullivan Development has built the properties was owned by the Galbraiths, but was never actually part of the subdivision. So they've built, so here's the plaza, here's like where the trucks come behind the plaza, here are their buildings. Between the street and their farthest east buildings, they do own land that they may develop in the future.
Okay.
The golf cart path.
As of now, they haven't decided when or what they're gonna do.
Gotcha.
I can't imagine that they're gonna put up more of the income-based property unless another round of the LIHTC or something similar comes out, basically to offset their losses in setting the rents where they are. Maybe they just put up a few single-family homes. Maybe they put in a small row of row houses and sort of like phase the density from 34 units to townhome to large lot. Single. I don't think they have that figured out yet, but they do still own land
That they could do.
they could build it. They would have to build probably another street out there because of the layout in order to get access to the house of these new units. Like they'd probably do similar to what they did, build up an alley behind the farthest
Right, and
east
then
unit.
have the-
Technically, there is an alley there, but those how new units or whatever they built up to that, and then build another street to get access to.
Take it between you.
But that's up in the air,
Mhm.
what they're gonna do. Probably wait to make sure that they don't lose their.
For you, right, yeah.
I needed to see the visuals on the map.
No, you're
You're
good.
describing it, I'm like, I need a
Well,
map.
can't you put pictures up on the TVs, Nathan?
I could actually, yes. If there's something you guys want to see next time, I can.
Oh, that'd be great. I like pictures.
I'm a visual person.
I like
I'm with
pictures,
you.
seriously. That helps.
I can do that. So, John, you brought up that meeting we had, that non-official meeting we had last year. I kind of wanted to revisit that conversation because it ties into the comprehensive planning process in some respects. If you will indulge me, I'm gonna jump briefly into comprehensive plan, come back to this, and then go a little more depth into comprehensive plan. So, last year, county was preparing to submit an application to Okra for a planning grant to develop a new comprehensive plan. We had some things go wrong with the funding for it and weren't able to submit. And we were not able to submit in the following round because we expected that the county was going to have to be the applicant of record for a planning grant for the new fire station in Maderaville. Townships are not allowed to receive grants and have to be subrecipients, so the county has to step in. That project has been beleaguered from day one, and they were not ready to submit in the second half, in the last quarter, I guess, of 25. I'm not sure if they're ready for this first quarter application, but the county knows that they are going to be calling on us to be their applicant of record when the time comes. So eventually, the county commissioners agreed unanimously to move forward with the comprehensive plan, self-funding it pending county council approval. And the county council approved moving forward with a maximum project cost of $120,000, which is almost twice what we would have been able to do through the grant process at that time. 120 is probably on the high end. It gives us some room, but our regional planning commission staff who do the grant applications for us have long felt that the state's maximum for a comprehensive plan is not enough. And so it's going to cost us more. Some of it is coming out of rainy day, fortunately, but we are moving forward with that. The request for proposals has gone out to 12 firms. Last time we only had 2 even submit proposals. Gone out to 12 firms. I have heard some sort of response from, I believe, 5 of those firms. Proposals are due at the end of February. We'll put the committee together to review, interview, and by late spring, early summer, we should be moving forward with this comprehensive planning process. Comprehensive plan is ultimately the Plan Commission's baby, but the RFP covers a lot of ground, much of which is beyond the technical and legal expectations of the Plan Commission. And so the CDC and all the commissions that I work with, I am hoping will play a role in this. I hope that individual members will participate in the public engagement process as residents of the community. And we will either try to schedule meetings of all the constituent commissions with the consultants, or as Brandy had suggested at one of our meetings, trying to do like a joint session of the CDC, the RC, the EDC, the TAC, and Industrial Park Board. So the consultants and I aren't going through the same thing, 5 things. And so if there is potential for like cross communication between 2 of the commissions, that happens. And I mean, it's hard enough to get like all 8 of you to find a meeting that works. Trying to get like 20 people is going to be difficult, but at the end of the day, as long as there's some representation from each one, I'm not super concerned about having a quorum at each one. It's not like we're going to be, doing normal business. It's going to be a conversation with the consultant.
I agree.
And so like at this morning's TAC meeting, we talked for instance, this recreational center we've talked about, if someday that has wheels, while it's primarily going to be an amenity oriented towards the residents of Pulaski County, depending on what would end up going in it, there's a chance that it could have a tourism value. And so having a conversation between RC members and TAC members with the consultant could prove to be beneficial. That said, even if we do the mass joint session rather than in, I really hope that this body in particular takes on a little more ownership than the other commission because of the wide range of power that the redevelopment commission has. The things we have been talking about, I feel like after the planning commission, the RC almost needs to be the number two parent of this project, because there is so much that we potentially could do with political will and financing that we have the authority to do, to acquire property, build, renovate, lease out, sell, that sort of thing that other agents of government don't have or have in more limited ways. So I'm really hoping that you all will, as residents of the county, participate during the public engagement process, but also that the RC can take a degree of ownership in this comprehensive plan so that when it's done, it is something that doesn't just help the planning commission to make the best decisions possible regarding land use, but that it is something that has really good guidance for us to take next steps of actual programs, projects, that sort of thing. So back to future visiting. On page 6 of your packet, I summarized the conversation we had at that March meeting and added a few notes and questions about some of the things. I did not mention the recreational facility for some reason, so I've got that in my notes in the margin. So obviously we talked about, so stop me, interject anytime you have any questions, comments, thoughts, things you want to expound upon or expand upon. But we talked about emphasizing on starting small to avoid putting too much investment in something where we're not going to be able to recoup it. But I guess the question there is, like, in what respect does that apply to the stuff we might do, and what is too small? But I think that in general, that is obviously an advisable principle. I just think that as we see what opportunities we have and what funding mechanisms we have access to, we may have to have conversations about what is too big and what is too small, that, like, why are we doing this? What measurable impact are we having on the community, or what measurable impact are we denying ourselves a chance to have because we're too fiscally conservative? And so I think we're going to have to find that, which is probably not going to be a straight line. For project A, it might be here and it might shoot over to here for point B, but I think it's generally, obviously, especially when we're working with taxpayer money, an advisable process or practice. But any comments on that right now?
I think we said that with the intent of, like, it's not precluding us from opportunities, but, like, we're not going to go out and build like a 20-court stadium. Like, I think somebody had suggested, what if we do this countywide streetscape improvement, like the
facade program?
Yes,
Yeah.
the facade program, like that type of, like, let's do this and get some traction, not like.
I would say, I think that's a really good start. I think that invites, I think it puts a good image on the county, and I think it invites as people are driving through or looking. I think that's sort of small enough, but also allows us for a large impact, just from an optics standpoint of improving the cityscapes.
Well, I totally agree. Like, when you drive down to Logansport to Indy, some of those small towns have had.
Like Kirkland?
Yeah, it's so cute. It's so attractive. However, I would definitely say before we've ever endeavored on that, we need to send somebody as a representative to go speak to our business owners. Like, the business owners in downtown Winamac are tired of shit being torn up. Like, streets, sidewalks, lamps. They're pretty frustrated.
Yeah, I
So-
think this was a program like you opt in, and if you say you want to
This would all-
you want to put an awning on and you want to paint it and
But like,
put
if you look
new.
at Kirkland, nobody opted out. I'm just saying before. I
What's
think
the buy-in? What's
Yeah.
the,
Yeah,
what's
we need
the
to go talk
level
to,
of
make sure
acceptance?
that when we get to that point, do they want this? I mean, and who owns the building? You're a assuming that
Well,
like,
I think that's a big part.
Well,
of
and so that's why
it.
it would be an application process. So if-
But if I may, just to add in, like, if all the towns end up being Main Street certified through Okra supports that independent of anything that we're doing. So if they were to take that first step, maybe we could partner with them
Yeah, and
and maximize impact versus like trying
and
to.
those are conversations I have had with both Uptown and Main Street Winamac about that potential for partnership.
So
yeah, it
there's
would be
just,
fantastic.
Uptown has been more like, that is something Uptown is waiting to see happen.
just part of the opportunity is all I was saying.
I love that. And I just think that too, like, we have to be so careful to not just focus on, goodness, I think all of us, there's not very many people here that represent like Francisville, Madera, but we have to be so careful when we're making.
Oh, one Francisville guy didn't show up.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's why we mentioned all the towns, so we could be inclusive. Yeah, because, having connections in different communities, I can tell you that sometimes there's this feeling that Winamac gets everything.
Yes, well, and that's why this would be, so it would be, as I envision it, conversations I've had about it kind of have looked. In Winamac, we would partner with Main Street Winamac. Obviously, the town would have a role, and ultimately, the building owners are going to be the ones who are coming and saying, I would like to be in this program. In Francisville, we would partner with the Uptown Project. In Monterey and Maderryville, we would probably partner with the town councils general. But yeah, it would be a partnership in each county, or each town of the county, and ultimately, if you don't want to participate, you don't.
But I guess my commentary is if that is what the project is that deems that it's worthy of the efforts of this board and taxpayer money, like I feel then that would be a route to go, is to partner with them. And I know that I wasn't a part of your brainstorming conversation, but I would be interested in seeing what is going to be the due diligence in the selection project for us determining which are the potential to make the most impact. Like, is there data that can drive it? Is there community input that can drive it? Is what can help us drive our decision-making rather than us just sitting here and saying, I think this is a good idea.
And that's where
This
I think
feels
maybe
like
the
something
partnership
we should
component
do.
especially comes in.
But
Make
there's
sure-
projects outside of that partnership, like maybe, I'm just saying, like, if we were to do those, there's partnership, but you've recommended, like, I heard you talk about a rec center or some other things too. And I think they're all amazing ideas, especially if we want to start attracting families here, we need to be giving them things to be drawn to, but what resources do we have at our ready that helps us in that decision-making process to say, we should prioritize this one over this one, and sort of takes a little bit of the emotional bias and the personal bias out of the decision-making process.
I think motivation is primary. Is if we find that they reach out to, what's the project in France?
Uptown
I'm sorry. I know there's some. And we find that they have a motivated group, then we start there, and then other people see the success of Monterey and Berryville don't have Main Street projects. But like you said, it's not just this, it's Oprah money and the other stuff. There's a group in Berryville right now that's kicking butt and taking names to save that gym. And they don't have.
Francisville also, that's the group combines both
Yeah,
communities.
there's yes, Francisville and Maderryville have a very motivated group, and I wish I could see some of those people here, because that almost seems like a place, and-
I have had several conversations with Morgan Federer about these. She's the president of Uptown, and so she more than anyone is asking, when are we going to have facade program? When's there going to be facade money? So they do not have as much of a presence on here as I would like, but I am in frequent conversation with both Uptown and, to a lesser degree, but through Morgan, with the Maderryville gym program.
Facade is definitely something, and it probably would have motivation. The gym probably would, but like the rec center probably would, from the sports leagues that we have. Like a rec center is a tourism draw because it's drawing people, and you'd have weekenders coming in for tournaments from all sorts of surrounding towns, so I think there probably are some good motivated groups to partner with us. But again, it comes back to, is there some sort of, I don't know that I want us to have to wait on the comprehensive strategic plan because that's long-term planning. And it sounds like you're more anxious to do something sooner rather than later. Is there some sort of other state resource that can come in and say, this has been proven to work well in communities of this size. These are the resources, these are the money, or this is a program we have that can help guide you in even the selection process, or I think there's a lot we don't know because we don't currently have it, and it might look good to us right
I will
now.
tell you that we approved for Nathan to be a member of like 2 different organizations last year.
Just one, just the RA.
Pay for his dues so he can go to all the meetings. I think he's gonna have to be the one that brings that to us.
So
He gets all the stats and he knows the players.
one, agreed. Two, a couple of thoughts in response to your question, Brady. Like, yeah, I think there are some things we would like to make happen faster than the comprehensive plan is going to allow.
It could be a small win, right?
Yes.
Just get something under the
How,
belt.
so yes, that also think that part of this conversation that we're having right now is, I'm hoping, going to be stuff that drives part of the comprehensive plan process. So that when the redevelopment commission does play its role, we're not just coming and like, we don't have all the data to show what excellent, but we are able to bring that to the professional planners and say, here are the vision that we've been working on, help us to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, help us to prioritize this within the various overarching categories. To the extent that we may be able to find other funding sources, we could maybe start working on some smaller goals. A lot of those are probably still going to require us to get a commitment from the county council for some local match money. The extent to which the comprehensive plan's completion is sort of a check on how much we do is that county council, or at least some members, are hesitant to start dipping into any of the revenues from the solar projects until A, we have gotten like the first big sum payment, which doesn't come until next year, and B, until the comprehensive plan is done, or at least underway, so they can develop frameworks and aren't just getting, and so whether it's the Uptown Project, or the Redevelopment Commission, or St. Mary's Society for Orphans, they're not coming just hat in hand, and the council is just like saying yes or no without any, kind of what you're like, they're not always gonna have hard data points for it, but they're gonna have the comprehensive plan with all of the stakeholder input, public participation input that says, all right, this is where the county should be going. Here is how we translate into a framework for determining whether or not a project is worth funding. And I don't think we should get our hopes up that every, or even a large number of the dollars that come in from the solar projects are gonna come to us. But I think as we continue working towards like what we see our role in this community is, and the comprehensive plan is done, that is going to be a starting point, even if it is just the local match to go to the state for a grant. So I don't see the county council sending a lot of money our way, as long as our primary funding source is local tax dollars as opposed to grants or economic development payments or other non-tax revenues.
I think something that would help me, I don't know about everybody else, would be like a visual representation of what our funding opportunities are. Like, for example, tax money. So in other words, the council is going to have to give us this money from county general or whatever fund, which that we have to be super careful. This is potential to get it from some kind of large scale project that's happening in our county, like solar. This would be a grant that we could get grant money. This would be a private partnership where we would go to the Galbraith Family Foundation and say, we'd like $1 million to help us do this. And then lastly, a list of our community partners like Uptown and stuff. And then I think we need to figure out what it is we want to do so that all of our meetings become more concise, because we all have great representation up here. and then age
I
and
think-
everything.
I think I can put something together as far as it, and I think that's sort of what we're trying to get to, is to the point where our meetings can be more, because we can flesh out what our objectives are, and I think maybe at the next meeting, I can put that together and also sort of like further categorize some of these and say, all right, these are the ones that are probably most realistic, small victories that aren't gonna take a lot of funds to happen, and we can start.
It's like with the housing stuff, I feel like that's market driven. So I feel like if you told us, hey, we need to meet because Tommy Miller and Frank Shepard say we need a place to have housing. They're gonna come here, they're gonna tell us what they think, and then we're gonna run with it from there. Other than that, all of us talking about potential housing sounds cool. We can look at stats and stuff, but.
You're right. And part of the reason those projects were on here is
Yeah.
because when they
No, they're
first started
important.
moving forward, it could have, especially with the Catalyst project, that is a good, it could have been that this board had been involved in actually creating a TIF district to fund some of the infrastructure. I have continued providing updates so you know what's going on, but it was originally on this agenda specifically because of that role that the RC could have played if it had gotten to the point where that was necessary.
Right, and I think that, I think everybody's probably understand. I think we need to pick what we want to do, where we want to do it, and then narrow in on that. And I think if, once we get like a project under our belts, I think people are, and we might change, somebody might say this isn't for me, the commissioners might not like one of us, whatever. But this organization, get us some success, get our.
So let me pitch this for the next meeting whenever we can reconvene. In addition to trying to map out some of the funding sources, and I'll try to, and community partners, based on the list I have in front of you and today's conversation, I will kind of put together like a spreadsheet or a chart, and we'll send it out to all of you, either email it out, send it Google Docs, whatever, and ask you to say, all right, so project A, B, C, D, and okay, these are all the housing related, these are all the recreation, whatever. And ask you people to help me fill in the blanks for time frame, cost, impact, so that we can work towards a consensus without hashing out every little cell in the spreadsheet in this meeting, and that maybe will help us to say, all right, this is where we want. Maybe we go to the county council and say, will you give us the funds to do this small project because we think the value is there to show you that our existence is justified and that we are working, even before the comprehensive plan is here, we are achieving things that are impacting. So are you guys willing to take a look at that spreadsheet?
I would almost and I know that I'm not new but I've been pretty entrenched in the community for a while, and I'm pretty entrenched in a lot of other business structures. I'd like to see us step back and say, I'd like to know, are there any requirements or expectations of us from the state or the county of objectives that we are supposed to be meeting? This is the description, these are your 3 primary goals.
I think it's pretty broad.
Where we can say, even if it's broad, then we come there. And if there isn't, if we have the flexibility to help inform what those are, if we have that wiggle room, we come back in a line and we form our own strategy and then present it to the
The
commissioners.
short
or the
answer
council.
is we have that flexibility.
But what I'm hearing is currently there isn't a strategy
That
that
is-
says, this is our North Star, this is what we're working toward, this is what helps us say yes, no, maybe. It's all still kind
This
of.
is where
I think that's
I
what
would
the
imagine-
comprehensive plan
Nathan, you could
give
send
us.
us one of
Do we
these
have
things.
bylaws?
No.
So when they restructured, we didn't.
No, we just have, we have bylaws for the office more so than the CDC, the commissions. If we wanted to, we could. I mean, basically, we are guided by what Indiana code says we are allowed to do. The count,
I think what she's asking for is a mission.
yeah, and I think that
A bit what are we tasked
Mission
with?
statement
What
or
are we
purpose?
being tasked with? And then
That's what I was trying to
that
figure
helps
out.
us vet, are we doing it or not?
We discussed that at one point, didn't we?
well,
Larry?
it was March, the conversation that we're sort of continuing now. is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to develop that for ourselves because the county, when they approved the establishment of the RC, never said we explicitly want you to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
There are programs, there are things, like I was saying, there are powers we have, funding permitting and need permitting, that most county agencies don't have.
Do we currently have?
There is
Funding.
there is a document, you gave it to us when we started 2 years ago, that said like what we could do. I don't
And I can send
remember
you
off the top of my head, but
Is all, okay, do we have a budget? Is there like a certain amount right now that we
So-
wouldn't have to go ask for funds for?
Yes and no. Under law, the RC and the Economic Development Commission are supposed to have their own budgets. And because we established this while we were going through a transitional period with the auditor's office, we have not done that. It is just I just have the departmental budget that covers any costs for the RC, the TAC, the EDC, the industrial park.
Plus, we have no idea.
But
what
so
we
it's
need.
not divvied out.
Not yet.
And we don't know what we need, but once we get a project and we hone in on it, we're gonna start knowing. And then the next year, Nathan can propose a budget.
I am hoping to have that conversation with the auditor this year so that for 2027, we start breaking those up, starting with the two that are mandated to have. Like the TAC would be good to have its own.
I thought it did.
We have a line item in the departmental budget that is pretty much exclusively used for them for marketing, but we don't have, because we don't have, we don't have a separate tourism director and a redevelopment director, an economic development director. So all of the personnel costs would probably remain in the departmental budget anyway, but the professional services line item, which this year has about 100,000 in it, it might be divided like 40,000 RC, 30,000 EDC, 20,000 TAC, 10,000 generic departmental budget to cover gaps. And I'm hoping like the more we work on figuring out the direction we're going, but I'm going to guess quite frankly, that if we are ever at the point where we have a project that has a pretty hefty price tag, that's going to be something we're going to the county council mid-year for an additional appropriation. Unless we have all the ducks in a row in like August of the preceding year, they're not gonna give us like a $500,000. That's good. They're gonna wait until we see it and do that. The only time there's been an exception to that is when they have expected my office's budget to cover courthouse construction costs or justice center construction costs before the bond had been issued to reimburse. So if July hits and we have all come to, we want to build, and this is not realistic, but for sake of argument, we are ready to build a rec center. We have price estimates on land acquisition, on construction costs. We have gotten all of this input from all of the sports leagues, from the town park boards. We know what we want to build. It is a $4 million project. Will you put $1 million in the redevelopment budget for the grant match meeting? That is the only chance in which I foresee like having a substantial amount of money allocated for us, like when the budget is adopted, as opposed to coming back for an additional when we have all the ducks in a row.
Otherwise, all the operating costs are absorbed into your budget.
So
And it's really going to be what the auditor prefers. Does the auditor, that's sitting auditor, does she want us to come to her with a budget session, send you with the budget that says we need $1 million, and they approve it, then it goes to the state, blah, 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 and then, it's 6 months till we have it? Or does the auditor want us to come and say, can we have $1 million? Right?
Yes.
That's the politics of it.
yeah. So Brandy, realistically, right now, we probably have a chunk of the professional services line item,
But that's already been pre-committed. to
60
a lot
grand
of
of it
things.
has. 60, so we've
And you've got
got,
to divvy the rest of that up among all your commissions?
yes, but realistically, I don't spend a lot. The only reason there is as much in it is that we're coming down from the high levels we used pre-construction bond, and because as you've heard at, I think a council meeting when brought up that additional, like any legal bills incurred specifically relating to tax abatement lawsuits come out of mine. And that 40,000, depending on the process of this litigation, we might not touch any of it until 2027. But part of that $40,000 and more if we don't max out the 120 budget on the comp plan, I would say 20 of that we could easily assume the redevelopment commission could use if we needed it. I also have the very broadly named economic development line item. That has a $40,000 appropriation. Part of it is going to have to go to the match on a regional grant project. Probably 30 of the 40 there could be used. So we probably have, if we find a need for it, $50,000 to put towards something that we can justify.
That doesn't include any solar money.
No, that's just out of my budget. It might have to, we might have to do a transfer from professional services to that economic development line item or vice versa. But we do have some room to do something without going back for an additional, asking for solar money, even if it's just enough, if we find a project that we think is worth applying for a grant for to put the local match to. We've got
So
50-ish
basically,
of
what
it.
we can expect from you, Nathan, is some further information on those funds, and then we need to, like, essentially vote, but not vote. We're gonna rank, because we can't vote without a meeting. We need to rank. You're gonna give us some projects that we proposed last year. You'd like us to rank them, and then when we actually.
I don't necessarily want them to be ranked so much as categorized based on like how costly, how long it's gonna take.
Yeah,
I guess to
What
the
was
extent
the
there's
basis
a,
of those projects, I guess I'd say it again. like-
this conversation. I mean, it's,
you were spitballing.
yeah, it's spitballing the things that this, and if we decide that doesn't make sense, once you all see it in spreadsheet or chart form, we remove it. But we got, I think if we want to get to the point you're talking about, Brendan, I think we do. I think we need to start with something in paper where you guys can all contribute and we can hash out rather than going through every single cell in this meeting. I think, John, to the point about ranking, the extent you might be ranking them is perceived impact that the project's going to have. Like, is a rec center is going to have a bigger impact than a facade program, but a facade program is still going to have some important impact. If it makes it more people want to check out downtown, if it makes an entrepreneur more comfortable investing in downtown because it's a bright, cheery place with beautiful buildings. And so I think that's, and if it kind of, I think that could be the next step.
Well, I guess the reason I didn't say vote, I said rank, was just so that, I know you're gonna separate them probably into, here's something we could probably get done in the next 18 months, here's something that would take 5 years or more, here's something that is.
Well, and I want your input on this. I'm not going to be an expert on how long it's going to take to do every one of these. Any background expertise that any of you can bring to the table to try. I mean, maybe Brandy says Project X is going to take us like 9 months, and Kyle says that I think it's going to take 2 months, and Brian's it's like a 2-year project, and it means we need to go and ask the experts to get a sense. I'm not a construction manager, but I've got a decent sense of how long projects take from the work I've done, and I can contribute to that. But
And we have money if we ask an expert.
yes.
So, but I guess I was just thinking in my head, I would like to, because, you know, this seems like a fantastic group of minds here, agree soon on something maybe so we can
Yes.
do something even before this comprehensive plan is done. And commissioners and council know that we are a group of people that are getter-doners, and we have a vision for our community. So I guess how do we get to that point? I think narrow it down to a few ideas and then run from there. And you're going to help us by helping us. Correct?
Yes. That is the goal.
I like it.
Okay, so on that list back on page 6, we've talked quite a bit of length at the facade program possibilities. The only thing I would add is I think that if and when we get to the point where we're able to roll something like that out, I think it might be advisable to sort of take a dual approach where we offer grants, low interest loans, and a combination so that we're not necessarily spending down the entire balance too quickly. I mean, ideally, the owners are probably going to have some skin in the game anyway, and that may be a requirement. You have to cover X% costs, but might give us a chance to use some of the money that goes out when it comes back in with even just a minor % of interest to keep that fund alive, kind of like our revolving loan fund program. As we have talked about tonight, we want to make sure that the projects are not focused solely in Winnemucca. At the end of the day, some of that is going to be based on where the willing and able partners are. If somebody in Winnemucca has a project that they want to partner with us on, and they've got some of the cash for a capital stack, and we've done 3 projects in Winnemucca, I'm not going to recommend we don't do it because it's not in another town. But yes, I think we all agree we want to spread the wealth and spread our energies. I think we need to be mindful that sometimes the projects themselves are going to dictate where we focus our energy.
But I mean, do we need to put some constraints on that? So let's say we had 50,000 to spend, right? Project one comes in at 47.5 and we have 4 other projects. Are we partially funding that 47.5 or are we just, so like, I guess figuring out, and this is actually very much like a grant process. It's like, all right, are people coming forward with ideas and then we're sort of going, here's the money we have to spend, here's how we're divvying it up? Or, you know, are we just saying?
I think we should have guidelines in place. I don't know that they should be hard and fast rules. And I think part of that probably comes out of as we continue this conversation and the comprehensive plan and what the county council is willing to finance. Because if we don't have the funding without going to the council, even if we think it's a great idea, if they don't think it lines up with their interpretation of the comprehensive plan, they might say, we'll pay for local match if somebody else, but they might not want to let us like spend money on something that they don't see as being aligned with their goals.
I think based on what I've seen from the budgeting process, Nathan, feel free to counter me if you want, but we should plan to not have to ask the council for money for what we're doing for this calendar year.
For this calendar year, I agree 110%.
I mean, I think it behooves us to do what we can independently.
And then I think having sat in front of the council for budgets and additionals and transfers and encumbrances, all that jazz, I would much rather have our ducks in a row in July. And when you propose a budget, in case anybody here besides Nathan hasn't had to sit before the council and do it, think it's going to be 100,000. You ask them for 125, and they usually are, oh, okay, you know. So my experience, and I guess it's going to go on public record if we say this, I would much rather take a plan, an idea for the council or commissioners to vote on than to ask them to make to answer our questions or choose or whatever, because it's never going to get done. And if we say we want to do a pecan program and a dairy program, and this is what we want to do, can we get your blessing? And they say no, okay.
You don't spin your wheels pursuing it
Yeah.
and developing a
we
full-fledged.
dust ourselves off and figure out where we're going next. But I don't like the idea, and that's why I think they have these groups, is that we go to them and we say, hey, we represent a lot of the population here. You appointed us to be your hands and feet in the community. Here's what we'd like to do, yes or no. Now, here's 6 things we'd like to do, and here's all this stuff. Their heads just pop off. And then so I would much rather just us hone in on something, take it to them, hey, and if they don't like it, hey, my feelings aren't hurt, let's pick something else. Nathan's been told no before.
Plenty of times.
Nathan's gonna be the one that goes before them anyway, not us.
But to Brian's point with that, 50,000 doesn't go very far. So how are we deciding? Are we going all in on a project? Are we going to try to split it between 2? Like what's the level of impact we want to have with them and have an agreed upon mindset around that?
And I think, I mean, I've told council members this, I've told commissioners this. I think the county needs a win of some kind, something, just move forward a little bit. So being able to be able to say, look, we've done these 2 or 3 things, and yes, they may seem small, but they're done and they're improvement. And this is what we can do when we work together and put people in a room and have conversations of saying, hey, start small, but we have a bigger vision and we want to work towards that. This is what we did this year. Next year, it's 100,000 and we're going to work towards that. And then, you know, maybe there's some bigger projects down the road that comes out of the comprehensive plan that you can work towards, but at least it's showing that, hey, here's the money that we're stewards of, that the taxpayers have given us, and saying, hey, here's what we're doing to try to improve the communities that we live in across the board.
I would love to use somebody else's money.
I think we all would.
I mean, as much as possible. I mean, this is not a solar dig or plug or anything. I would just love to use that money.
I agree. And I agree, but also
I would love
let's
to.
be cognizant of the fact, and it's a complicated history. This county until 2020 had the highest income tax rate in the state of Indiana and had very little to show for it. It is, and we're not wealthy, but we are in a much better financial position than we were 5 years ago. It is the taxpayers' money. Now, we don't want to blow every penny of tax money but if they continue to collect it at the rates at which we collect it, and we aren't spending it, some of that cash reserve should be available for projects that perpetuate the growth of the county. I mean, we have to show an ROI, we have to show a plan, have the ducks in a row, but we should be able to say to the county, look, the Economic Development Income Tax Fund is very healthy. And to the extent it is dwindling to any degree, it's not because of the CDC, it's because twice as much money you give to the CDC is going to pay your insurance bills and some of your IT costs because you're not taking them out of other funds. You have collected these taxes from the people of this county.
Your ADA consultant.
Invest them in this county's future so that maybe in 10 years, we can cut the income tax rate by 10 percentage points while still generating inflation adjusted the same amount of revenue because we have more people and or higher paychecks. That's a lot to sell them on, but I think that should be an underlying, yes, let's spend money that taxpayers of this county aren't paying to the greatest extent possible, but they paid the money to the government. Let's invest it in their future.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we have about $50,000 potentially to use this year. We're going to think about some other projects. We had previous discussions about like an incubator and partnerships with schools and some other things, what we could potentially do with the building. But it does sound like a facade program could be countywide. It could start slow and small. We could use the money that we have. We don't have to go asking for it. It's partnershiping, so we're not like making a decision. It's Uptown Project and Monterey coming to us with, hey, we have this, business owner who wants to do something. And we say, yeah, we can give you $10,000 as a grant or, $10,000 in a loan or combined or whatever. I mean, that sounds very reasonable to start this year.
And I think the benefit of starting with something like that is, even if there's such interest that $50,000 doesn't last very long, it's not a project that dies forever when we run out of funds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a living
We say,
project.
hey, county council, look, we know you're not keen on spending very much solar money until you've got bigger checks coming in and you've got the comprehensive plan. But we have proven that there is an appetite for this. It is case by case, a pretty small investment, and it's improving our community. Can you throw us a little bit more this year?
I guess my challenge with that would be, it needs to feel like it's going to have an impact. Back to Brian's point, that the county needs a win. When you have a little thing done here and a little thing done in Francisville and a little thing done in Monterey, I don't know that the impact is felt as much.
But I think it's
Impact
felt,
is before-
I think it's felt
before.
microwly. I think sometimes we get lost in, we are a big spread out community. And I think we focus on, well, what's a giant win? Back to my term, what's a giant win for the county? Unless we build it on the corner of 39 and 14, somebody's going to feel it didn't
I live in
impact
Monterey,
them.
so
So I get it. I would love to do something large at some point. I think if you can start winning people over on small levels, it allows them to kind of, okay, they're working towards something. Yeah, we got a small thing here and we got a small thing here, but that's something that impacted where I live. And yes, we're part of Pulaski County,
If you
but I'm
think
a Monterey
people don't
person.
notice,
I'm a
oh, they
Derryville person.
notice.
I'm a Francisville person. I'm a Winnemac person. I think there is some impact there, at least to just get the wheels
I
moving.
think to that point too, Brian, it's not exactly as if my department or building department is particularly robustly staffed. But it's not like, even like the courthouse project, we didn't need a big staff internally because we had a construction manager. But there are going to be projects that are in between the scale of something a two-person staff can handle and something that I can handle with a part-time steering committee because there is a construction manager running it full-time. And if we start with that smaller thing, and we're successful, and we're showing, look, we are stretching our office thin even beyond where we were already. It's a lot easier to have that conversation and say, we're not asking for another person in the office because we want another person. It's because we are doing X, Y, and Z. You've already seen how many things we have dropped because you put me on stuff that isn't my job. Now we're actually doing my job and we're running out of capacity for it.
Okay, true or false though? Let's say we put word out there to the incorporated communities of Pulaski County that would like to do a facade project. And we had like an application process, and after it's all said and done, this group says, okay, we choose Francisville. That's where we start. They've got that uptown. One of the requirements is you need to give us a person, like to help with the project.
So
Like they take some ownership in it.
I think the way I envision the partnership, and this is just me speaking, not on behalf of the RC, is rather than necessarily targeting it, although that might be an option, because Uptown is probably the strongest potential partner B, but if
I'm just thinking.
if the floral shop in downtown Francisville comes to us with an application, it's going to be reviewed by, say, me and two of you and two members of the Uptown Project. I see that, like, you want this happening in your community, your organization, whether it's a Main Street group where they exist, or the town council, or in Maderaeville, maybe it's not really their bread and butter, but maybe it's the gym group because they are the one that has that momentum. But you want this happening in your community, you want the businesses and buildings in your town, you're going to be part of this conversation. We're going to make sure that it's not a guy who lives in Stark County and works in Winnemac and two or three people who live on the eastern side of the county deciding whether or not this building in your town gets the grant, a loan, or both. You're going to be part of the conversation. That's how I see the partnership working out, so that there's local buy-in and local guidance, and it's not just the county making decisions from on high.
I was just thinking in my head then, for every decision that's made on that, I don't know if it's gonna take all of us, or if there would be that steering committee.
And that's up to as we, like, if we decide, like at the next meeting after I put together this table, and if we decide this is how we want to proceed this year, we're going to have to put together program rules. And that's going to be part of the conversation with the rules is, do we want it to come before the entire redevelopment commission? Do we want it to be just a committee, or do we want a committee to make a recommendations? Like, maybe it's every quarter the redevelopment commission meets on a regular basis and gets a report. So if there have been no applications, we don't discuss that at that quarterly meeting. But if the committee has received 7 applications worth $50,000 and we only have 40, we bring them to and we say, here's how we have scored them. How do you want to do this? Do you want to fund all of them partially, some fully, some partially, some fully, not at all? But I think that's up to these people at this table to decide if you want it to be strictly a committee voice, or the committee is an advisory committee and the redevelopment commission as the stewards of these funds, whether they're tax money, solar money, or John Frayne writes a check. That's your decision as the stewards of these funds to make.
I think this is great and probably warrants its own subsession, because the partnership could be like helping us to, if this is the one that we go with, helping us to decide who is awarded it, or, going back to the assistance that these, and the connections that the Main Street groups have through Okra. There's programs that maybe they could apply for additional monies, and we could go together and do double the impact than we could on our own. But if Uptown is the only one with a formalized Main Street, they would be the only ones that would fall into that
That's a requirement, right? to
funding.
get the-
Yeah, you have to be a certain level of a Main Street.
Wouldn't it be something if all said and done, that's what we ended up doing? Like, that would be such an example setting moment for all the other towns.
It might be, because the Uptown
'Cause they have
project,
their crap together.
I have been involved with Uptown since it started. It has done a lot of great things.
I thought you-
It has never, other than maybe the Mercantile, it has never done anything like, boom, this is who we want to be. But that is like exactly the sort of thing that it could be. They have the capacity.
Does,
When you talk about everybody getting that win, don't you think that whatever community we impact, whoever we get from their town councilor or their group, is, we're going to tell them, PR the heck out of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
Take pictures, send it to the Journal, call Channel 6, Wouldn't it be nice to have the news here for some reason other than us looking stupid? I mean, can we so I'm really excited about this. I think we have great minds and hearts here. I'm
Brandy, on the Okra piece, I guess I'm just thinking this, stretch the 50, right?
Mhm.
Let's say we'll match you up to 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever the number is. Okra's a match too, right?
They could potentially be if the Main Street program applies to get grant funding. Okra has funding specifically earmarked for Main Street committees that is much easier for them to get because they've already gone through like this certification and programming process, and they have a downtown facade program.
So flower shop, to use the example, let's say the flower shop says, I want to spend 10 grand. They could petition Okra for 5 and we theoretically could kick in the 5. Like, I guess that's my question is like, can both
Not-
sides sort of
Not
like,
quite that simple. Like,
Okay.
Okra's not going to make a grant that is earmarked for one specific purpose. The grant is going to go to the town of Francisville
Gotcha.
to partner with Uptown. Now, there are some programs like
And then
historic
they can figure
preservation.
out who to steward those monies to, and we could partner with them and maybe
So if
go
they went to,
twice as
like,
far.
Indiana Landmarks or a historic preservation funding agency, or even when Okra has it open up some preservation program, that's a case where an individual business could, or building owner could go and we could partner and be a match.
gotcha.
But we could, together, I won't continue to, there's lots of partnership
There
opportunities.
are
if
there
there's
are different,
one
there are
Main
multiple
Street.
ways to skin this cat depending on who's willing
I
to
think there's
participate.
so many possibilities of partnership.
Yes.
Brandy knows about it. She's been involved.
I think that when we look to steward these funds, we look for impact, partnership, to maximize our efforts.
I think sustainability too. Not something that we have to take care of.
That's the-
At first, we need to do something
Maintenance then
that,
is what I would call
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, maintenance or sustainability, something that we're not gonna have to keep continue. For this first project, something that we can get done and say, look, not something that's gonna require, like, hey, we use this free money from solar, but now the county needs to allocate $50,000 a year to take care of it. They're not gonna like that.
Mhm.
All right, we're closing in on 90 minutes. Very good conversation, but I do want to keep us going.
Actually, one other thing to your point about PR, I think let's say we went with this press release saying, hey, Redevelopment Commission is going to embark on a facade project, 50,000 spend, taking bids, whatever, is you're going to have people go, we're spending 50 grand on that. Like, I don't care about facades. I think you're going to have that no matter what you do.
Well, let's not tell them how much we spent.
But I mean, I think you're going to tell people what the program is. And part of that is the communication. And I think you just have to say, this is what we're going to work on. And that's the messaging, and say, look, you might not care, but there are people who do.
We gotta start.
We have we're small, we have 12,000 people, but you're never going to please everybody anyway. And so to some extent, this is what we're working on. Love for your idea. What's your input? What can we do next?
My concluding thought on all this would be Nathan is the media is not here, correct? Didn't show up to cover our meeting, correct? Are we live on,
We are live on YouTube.
so people can see us? You know, if we could put something out there that says, the Redevelopment Commission is brainstorming and preparing for, and if you have suggestions or ideas, here's Nathan's email, or here's the RDC's email. Like, we let them come to us. So we come up with the ideas and then we just kind of like throw them out there, and then they will bring them back to us.
I think there is merit to that, but I think that is a place where we rely on the comprehensive plan as opposed to like having two parallel public input processes
Sure.
going on at the same time.
Sure.
But I think that is a good way to,
I am always going to advocate for community input because I think it builds trust and deflects some of the negativity that comes about, because that's when you don't receive it, that's when frustration is built. So if that couldn't be done, could we do something where we have organized, we have our objectives, we have a mission, we've come up with maybe 2 ideas that we put out. So not like broad and bring it all, but here's 2 ideas. And then we take the one that has received the most interest in or support of, and that's the one we pursue. And then that shows the community, we had X number of businesses interested in this across the county. So this is why we are doing
I think,
this.
I think once we kind of whittle through these in a more formal way and prioritize based on cost, ease, just impact, timeframe, I think we say, all right, these are the two that are rising to the top. I think we could do something
I
exactly.
want to
like
know which community is motivated and which one of our potential project they would choose. That's going to be the group that I'm going to gravitate towards.
But you could do one in each community.
Oh, yeah, if they want it. Yeah,
If
there-
they want
there
it.
could
I think
be-
that's the tough thing, right?
Yeah, we're not
Hospital
pushing-
did community health needs survey last year, very little input. I mean, it's
If
just,
they want it.
I mean, it's out there.
Secondly, I think Nathan, you already probably have a procedure for your office. Any input we get, I'd like it to be from Pulaski County resident or business owner, signed who they are. I don't not Facebook comments and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah, I agree. It should be a formal process.
I want
that we
to
can-
operate off of formal, serious suggestions, either in writing to your office or to us, not a string of ridiculous Facebook comments that I'm sure we're bound to get.
So, moving on briefly through the rest of page 6. I think we've talked about enough about housing for today, but that is a role we have the ability to, where we have an ability to make good things happen if it needs to be, whether it's buying individual properties and partnering with the capital stack, establishing a residential TIF district, all of the above, like partnering with a downtown building owner to help them to find funding and other support to renovate the upstairs of their building to create more apartment. I think we have a role that we can potentially play there. Small business support, we talked about an incubator and a farmer's market expansion. I feel like the incubator conversation could be its own meeting, probably diving into looking at case studies, in particular in other rural communities, and how many of them have succeeded, how they measure success, are they still going? And we've got multiple spaces in this county that are sort of marketed as co-working spaces. And I don't know that any of them are really bursting at the seams, but none of them are offering, once you take that leap, I guess, from co-working space to incubation, I think that creates a little bit more demand for resources and staffing to be available, technical support, even if it's not anybody in-house, but hey, if you are working in the Francisville incubator and you're paying your nominal rent, you get access to a small business development counselor once a month or whatever. I think that could almost be its own conversation, reviewing case studies to see if we realistically think we can make that work here, and it's not going to be big investment, big flop. But I think anything we can do to support small business growth is obviously something I think we want to focus on. Partnership with local schools. I think the big question there is, where do the opportunities for partnering schools arise specifically for this organization? Through not so much the industrial park board, but the industrial forum that I have, where it's a more informal group, we have connected them with, they have made contacts to schools and have started internship pipelines. A lot, and some of them had relationships outside of that group. Some of them have developed because of that group. I used to do a business plan competition at Winnemac with Brandon Burgess.
Mhm.
Is that something? Maybe that's something we could support. And if we had the money for prizes, whether we paid for them or got donated, or whatever, this commission could be the ones judging those business plans. We could even have a public meeting, sort of like what they on a Shark Tank thing, but we're not really, but give these kids the opportunity to do public presentation, public speaking, pitching their business. And maybe if some of them are really not great plans, but if there are 20 submitted, the best 10 get to come and do a second, best 10 written proposals get to do an in-person.
Nathan, I like the idea of engaging our school, especially.
I do too. I'm just not sure, other than maybe that, where this body specifically has the strongest role to play in engaging the school.
I don't know that it would be to that. I think that your office definitely has a general role in that. I think you could probably take volunteers from your different commissions that would want to just be part of it, seeing our kids participate. I would just love to say that our students, their opinions matter too. They have ideas. The high schoolers are young adults. We would like them to make this their home. And I think it's important to have their input. And also the school collects so much data on all of us when we register our kids, and do they share that with you? I mean, they ask a lot of questions about all of us when we register our kids, like our housing status and our work status and all that. So what does the school want from us? That would be like a point blank question.
I do not want to cut you off. I have to leave for Mona
I know,
in
I'm
15
sorry.
minutes
I'm
for
sorry.
another
No,
meeting.
you're
So I
fine.
want to try to get,
Sorry.
there's only one thing on this list I haven't covered that I want to mention briefly. We talked about like potential of acquiring, renovating, leasing, reselling facilities. I think there could be a great opportunity. You know, we've got the East Annex the county wants to vacate, and we have to find homes for the last two offices. We have buildings in downtown Winnemac that have good bones but need a lot of help and are either not utilized or underutilized. I think that there is a potential for redevelopment commission, just a little bit more expensive than a facade program, going to take a lot more partnership with the county council and county commissioners. I think that we could potentially play a role in putting new life into a downtown building while helping the county to get out of one or two buildings, and obviously not going to narrow our footprint entirely, but narrow it a little bit more, or maybe put the health department in a building that has other uses that the public is using. So even though we can't narrow our footprint anymore and like cram them in the courthouse, they're in a building that's being used, and it's not like they're in one office and the rest of it is vacant. I had a conversation today with somebody outside of this commission who thinks that some sort of rec center project should be a long-term consideration for the county, maybe in partnership with the wellness center, build them a new facility and add onto it as part of this. And maybe the health department gets an office in there. But I think there are ways that we could help the county to deal with some of these bigger picture problems that also support existing buildings or projects we might. Keep that for our next to think about. I don't want to go through all line by line, but pages 7 through 10 are sections from the request for proposals for the comp plan. And I think I sent out the whole comp plan request to you, but these are some of the sections that I think are probably where the redevelopment commission should potentially have the most engagement, the biggest role potentially to play in helping to shape that and to have our work shaped by it going forward. I think it's pretty clear that we should meet again relatively soon. As I said last year, and as I said all my commissions, I do not want to set regular meetings just for the sake of meeting. The CDC does that once a quarter. I want us to meet whenever, anytime we feel it is necessary. I don't want to meet just so we can say we meet, check the box off. But I do think, as I said earlier, I want to have potentially this joint session with all the bodies and the comprehensive plan consultants when that time comes, and maybe a separate conversation, just the consultants, or maybe the consultants and the plan commission and us. But I think based on today's conversation, as we try to formulate a vision and mission statement and like a couple of projects that we want to consider as like first small wins, we should probably meet sooner rather than later, unless any of you don't want to do that.
I would say that's.
Is it possible? I work really well with a lot of people with standardized meetings. Is it possible to standardize them? And if we don't need them, like you say, we don't do it next month?
Yeah, we can definitely see if we can.
I don't
do
know
that.
if that's feasible for everybody or not. I'm just saying
All
it's
the
better for
groups
me,
I'm in,
like,
we have a meeting every month. If we don't need it, we cancel it. A lot easier for me personally.
I don't know that I would want to do that with some of the other commissions, but with this one right now, I think it's a perfectly reasonable idea, because I think there's going to be enough for us to.
the revolving loan
And I-
hasn't even been touched upon.
Well, that's not this one.
That's not
That's
this one at
EDC.
all? It
That's
doesn't
easy.
have to work on any part of it? Okay.
I sometimes wonder if maybe we should have done that instead of the EDC, but as of now, that's an EDC baby.
Okay.
But no, I think
Thursday nights work good for me.
I will send out a very simple email. What night of the week is best? I know Brian's got class a couple of times. I've got.
Did you try that doodle I told you about?
Yeah, I could try that. I mean, I don't think.
It just might make your life easier.
Doodles, cool.
like for scheduling with
Yeah,
all.
It is,
Everybody-
it's also with people like you where 12:30 works, but 12:45 doesn't. The nuances, but I think for this, that's a pretty simple. What week do you rank the week of the month you prefer? Yeah, I think we could do that, but I think for right now at least, setting a standard meeting and canceling when it's not necessary is a good idea. Economic Development Summit, just very briefly, late April, Winnemac, venue TBD. Hope you all can attend if the date works, but most of all, if you have, at this point, if you have any thoughts for what you want the guest speaker to talk about, get that to me. So when the CDC meets in a couple of weeks, I can have these ideas ready to present and we can start nailing that now.
This is the appropriate time to bring up the Beardstown Bears conversation.
Sure.
Are we?
Honestly, I think the better sell would be renaming one of our towns to Maberryville.
The Berryville, that's a good one.
Just, yeah, if you come up with any ideas, what you want to, if you want to hear from, I don't think we technically have a director, but from somebody on staff at the Redevelopment Association about redevelopment generally, because, I mean, we're still a fairly new body and we've never had any sort of real orientation. I've just given you like state code stuff. Or if they can connect me with somebody who has done really well at small town, small county redevelopment, maybe it's more to our benefit than anyone else, but the whole county can hear what the
I think
potential.
everybody would have somewhat of an interest in that. Well, everybody is a stretch. I think a lot of people would have interest in something like that.
Somebody who's done a FACADE program successfully in a small rural community.
Okay, I will throw those ideas out, but I think we got to start there. Only other thing I have very briefly, so CDC, it's mostly in our consent agenda, so we don't necessarily go through it, but they get a written report, they get an update on the budget every quarter. They see my whole calendar, all the meetings that Taylor and I have attended. You guys want that much information? It's not something like that would necessarily be an action where like, oh, on Tuesday I went to that, but it gives you a sense of what we're doing and what we have coming.
I think it would be great. If we don't want it, we can delete it or not open it.
Okay. Cool. Any of you have anything for the good of the order?
Thank you, Nathan.
Do you have any public comment? Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn at 6:07 PM?
I make a motion.
Don, is that your motion?
That's my second.
Anybody opposed to going home? We're adjourned. Thank you all for your participation, your very good conversation today. Thank you, man.
Nathan, I would have drank my water, but you gave me the only bottle without a label, which seemed a little fishy.
It just came off. It's not poison. The seals are not broken.
It's the no label water. I see how it is.
FYI, we had a